Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're going to take a deep dive into Triveni Engineering and Industries Limited,
Teal.
TEAL for short. You've really done your homework on this one, sending us financial reports, press releases, and even their latest earnings call transcript. Looks like someone is seriously considering an investment.
Well, it's a smart move to be well informed. Teal is a fascinating company with a lot going on beneath the surface.
Well, let's not waste any time then. We're ready to unpack the world of sugar, ethanol, power transmission, and water treatment, all thanks to TEAL. First things first, what is TEAL exactly?
They're one of India's largest integrated sugar manufacturers and a major ethanol producer. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. They also have a significant presence in power transmission and water treatment solutions, with projects spanning India and international markets. Think of them as a mini conglomerate with a finger in many different pies.
8 sugar mills, 6 distilleries facilities, a power transmission manufacturing facility, and countless water and wastewater treatment projects that I ask a lot of pies. Okay, let's see how they've been performing. I'm looking at their Q39M FY25 financial report, and it looks like a bit of a mixed bag.
Yes, revenue is up slightly, but profitability is down due to lower margins in their sugar and alcohol businesses. Interestingly, though, their engineering businesses, power transmission and water, are thriving with a record combined order book of over 356.3 crore.
That's a huge order book. What's driving that growth, and what does it signal about those segments?
It points to a robust demand for these services. Infrastructure development is booming both domestically and internationally, and Teal is well positioned to capitalize on that trend. We'll delve deeper into those segments later, but it's worth noting that they seem to be offsetting the challenges in Teal's traditional businesses.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit further. Starting with sugar, the earnings call transcript mentions that lower sugar prices in Q3 really hit their bottom line. It sounds like they were facing pressure from both ends, lower selling prices, and higher sugarcane costs due to government-mandated prices.
That's the sugar business in a nutshell, a roller coaster ride influenced by government policies, production levels, and global supply and demand. While prices have firmed up since Q3 due to lower production estimates and government-approved exports, it's a volatile market.
I noticed that Teal received an allocation of nearly 32,000 tons for sugar exports. That's a positive sign, right?
It is, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. The management is also hoping for a substantial increase in the minimum selling price, MSP, of sugar. They believe a higher MSP, which acts as a safety net for producers, is crucial to improve their margins.
So even with the recent price recovery and potential export opportunities, the company is still feeling the squeeze. What else stood out to you from the sugar business reports?
Their efforts to improve sugarcane recovery rates caught my eye. They're actively working on this, but facing challenges like red rot disease impacting their early season crop and the need to introduce near sugarcane varieties. It's a reminder that even a large company like Tail is subject to the uncertainties of agriculture.
Speaking of uncertainties, I was surprised to see they had to make an inventory write-down because initial sugarcane recoveries were lower than expected. It really brings home the point that agriculture is a risky business.
Absolutely. It reinforces the importance of diversification, which Tail seems to be doing well. Now shall we move on to the equally volatile world of ethanol?
Let's do it. The government's push for 20% ethanol blending with petrol by 2025 seems to be creating both opportunities and challenges for Teal. They're seeing revenue growth driven by a higher proportion of grain-based ethanol production, but profitability is down.
The shift towards grain-based ethanol is a direct result of that government mandate. However, it's also led to some policy decisions impacting the availability and pricing of molasses, which is traditionally used for ethanol production. This shift in the feedstock mix with more reliance on grain and surplus rice from the Food Corporation of India is putting pressure on their margins.
And the earnings call transcript even mentioned the company calling for increased government support on ethanol pricing. They specifically highlighted the need for better pricing on grain-based ethanol.
It seems they're advocating for a more balanced approach to ensure the viability of ethanol production from various sources. It's a complex equation for the government trying to balance incentivizing ethanol production with the impact on food production that relies on the same raw materials. This raises an interesting question. Is Teal signaling a longer-term shift away from molasses-based production? And if so, what are the implications for their business?
That's a great question, and I'm curious to see how this plays out. Now let's switch gears to a segment that seems to be a bright spot for Teal, their power transmission business.
Yes, their power transmission business, or PTB. Both domestic and international markets are fueling strong growth driven by robust industrial capital expenditure. This is reflected in that impressive order book we talked about earlier.
And it seems they are doubling down on this success. They just announced a Euro 60 crore capital expenditure to boost capacity in this business. What does this investment tell us about their confidence in PTB's future?
It's a clear sign that they see significant growth potential in this segment. Not only are they investing in capacity expansion, but they're also focusing on technology development, automation, and aftermarket services to solidify their market position. It's a multi-pronged approach aimed at building a sustainable competitive advantage.
What I find fascinating is the sheer variety of industries that rely on Tile's gears, everything from oil and gas to marine propulsion.
It speaks to the breadth of their technical expertise and their ability to cater to diverse, often specialized needs. But their ambitions extend beyond just providing products. They're actively building a comprehensive aftermarket service network, both domestically and internationally, to provide ongoing support to their clients.
So they're not just selling a product, they're building long-term relationships. It's a smart strategy, especially as they expand into new markets.
Hmm.
Now, before we get to the water business, I want to touch on something that really piqued my interest, their proposed restructuring. I have to admit, I was a little lost in the jargon of the composite scheme of arrangement they announced. Can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. It involves two main parts. First, they're merging one of their subsidiaries, Sir Shadi Lal Enterprises, into the parent company. This move is all about consolidating their sugar and alcohol businesses for greater efficiency and synergy.
That makes sense. Streamlining operations is usually a good thing. But the second part, spinning off their power transmission business into a separate listed entity called Triveni Power Transmission Limited, that's the part I'm struggling to wrap my head around. Why would they spin off such a successful and high-growth segment?
That's a great question, and one that many investors are asking. Their rationale is that this demerger will unlock value for shareholders, allow for more focused management attention on PTB, and provide investors with a clearer picture of its growth potential.
Okay, so it's about highlighting the value of PTB as a standalone entity. But if they believe in its future so strongly, wouldn't it make more sense to completely divest and maximize shareholder value? Why are they choosing to retain a stake in the demerged entity?
That's where things get interesting. They argue that retaining a stake allows them to participate in PTB's future growth while also providing financial flexibility for the parent company. However, some analysts believe a cleaner break with the complete divestiture might have been a more decisive way to unlock value and could potentially signal stronger confidence to the market.
This is getting very interesting, and I can't wait to hear more about the potential impact of this restructuring. But before we jump ahead, let's take a closer look at their water business.
That's a good place to pick up next. It's been a bit of a seesaw situation with revenue declines, but improved profitability and some very interesting developments in terms of project scope and ambition.
Perfect. We'll dive into that right after. We'll dive into that right away.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were starting to unravel Teal's diverse businesses. Let's zoom in on their water solutions business. It's been a bit of a mixed bag so far.
Definitely mixed bag. Revenue is down, but profitability is up. The reports pointed to delays in new orders and project execution as the main culprits for the revenue dip.
Yeah, those delays are understandable. These are large-scale projects with longer lead times, especially when government agencies are involved. What's encouraging is their order book. It's robust, standing at nearly 2,000 crore, with a significant portion coming from those long-duration operations and maintenance O&M contracts, which provide a steady stream of recurring revenue.
Ah, that recurring revenue is a good sign. I'm also seeing a strong focus on engineering, procurement, and construction, EPC, and hybrid annuity model, HAM projects in the reports. What's interesting is the sheer range of projects they are involved in, from treating wastewater for industrial clusters in India to providing clean drinking water to island communities in the Maldives.
It speaks to their adaptability and their ability to leverage their expertise across diverse geographies and sectors. This aligns perfectly with the growing global megatrend of demand for clean and sustainable water solutions.
Okay, so let's break this down. What are the key factors driving this demand, and why is Teal so well positioned to capitalize on it?
Well, we're seeing a convergence of factors here. First, governments worldwide, including India, are prioritizing water security. With increasing water scarcity and pollution, the need for effective water management solutions is more urgent than ever. Second, rapid urbanization and industrial growth further strain water resources. And lastly, there's growing awareness of the importance of sustainability and environmental responsibility, which is driving demand for more eco-friendly water solutions.
So it's not just about providing water. It's about providing it sustainably and responsibly. Teal's expertise seems to span the entire water cycle, from treatment and wastewater management to desalination, and zero liquid discharge projects, which aim to eliminate wastewater altogether.
Exactly. They are approaching this from a holistic perspective, which is crucial in addressing the complex challenges of water management. They're even exploring innovative financing models like which involve public-private partnerships to unlock funding for these crucial infrastructure projects.
And remember that intriguing detail about their interest in international water treatment projects. They seem to be looking beyond India's borders to expand their footprint.
It's a smart move considering the global scale of the water crisis. They're being strategic, though, focusing on projects with secure funding, often backed by multilateral agencies like the Exim Bank of India. This minimizes risk and ensures that their expansion is sustainable.
So from sugar to water, it's clear that Teal is actively pursuing opportunities in growth markets. Now, before we move on to the power transmission business, I want to circle back to something that really stood out in the earnings call transcript. The company's call for increased government support on ethanol pricing, specifically for grain-based ethanol. What do you make of this?
It's a strategic move on their part. By advocating for better pricing, they're attempting to influence policy in a way that supports their shift towards grain-based ethanol production. It's a delicate balancing act, though, because the government also needs to consider the impact of ethanol production on food security.
It's a complex web of interconnected factors: government policies, feedstock availability, pricing dynamics, and Teal's own production strategy. I'm curious to see how they navigate this evolving landscape and whether this signals a longer-term move away from traditional molasses-based production.
It will definitely be something to watch. Now, are you ready to power up and explore their power transmission business?
Let's do it. From what we've seen so far, their PTB is a real powerhouse. Robust growth both domestically and internationally, and that impressive order book definitely paints a positive picture. What else should we be paying attention to?
Their proactive approach to growth is key. Remember that 60 crore capital expenditure they announced. That's a clear indication of their commitment to expanding their PTD capacity.
And it's not just about expanding capacity, they're also investing heavily in technology automation and aftermarket services. They seem to be building a multi-layered strategy for long-term success.
Absolutely. They're not just content with being a supplier of gears and gearboxes. They want to be a comprehensive solutions provider. This includes a strong focus on aftermarket services both in India and internationally to support their clients throughout the life cycle of their products.
They're really taking a long-term view, building relationships and trust along the way. It's impressive to see how they're leveraging their expertise to target diverse industries, from power generation to oil and gas to marine propulsion.
Their commitment to diversification is evident in their push into the defense sector as well. They're setting up a new multimodal facility dedicated to defense products, leveraging their expertise in high-speed gears and gearboxes. This move aligns with India's increasing focus on self-reliance in defense manufacturing and opens up significant growth opportunities for Teal.
It's clear they're aiming to be a major player in this high-growth, high-value market, both domestically and internationally. But before we get too carried away with their growth story, we need to address the elephant in the room, the proposed restructuring.
You're right. The demerger of their power transmission business is a bold move, and it will be fascinating to see how it plays out. There are compelling arguments on both sides.
On one hand, it makes sense to unlock the value of PTB as a standalone entity and allow it to shine on its own. But on the other hand, their decision to retain a stake in the demerged entity raises questions. Wouldn't a complete divestiture be a clearer signal of confidence to the market and potentially unlock even greater shareholder value?
It's a valid point. They argue that retaining a stake allows them to participate in PTB's future growth and provides financial flexibility for the parent company. But some analysts believe a clean break would have been a more decisive move. Only time will tell what the ultimate impact of this restructuring will be.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground sugar, ethanol, water, and now power transmission. We've seen Teal's strengths, their challenges, and their ambitions for the future. What's the key takeaway you want our listener to remember from this deep dive?
That Teal is a company in transition. They're navigating a complex landscape, balancing their traditional businesses with their aspirations in emerging growth sectors. They're making bold moves, but they are not without risks. For investors, the key is to understand those dynamics, weigh the risks and opportunities, and decide whether Teal's journey aligns with their own investment goals.
Beautifully put. Now, before we wrap up, I want to highlight something we haven't touched on yet, their shareholding pattern.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating to look under the hood and see who is backing the company.
Absolutely. The shareholding pattern can provide valuable insights into investor sentiment and the perceived value of the company. What are you seeing there?
Well, the promoter group holds a majority stake, which is fairly typical for Indian companies. We also see a healthy mix of foreign portfolio investors, FPIs, mutual funds, and individual investors. But what really caught my eye is the significant increase in FPI holdings over the past year.
That's a noteworthy trend. It suggests that international investors are taking notice of teal and its potential, particularly in the power transmission and water sectors. This could be a sign of growing confidence in their growth strategy and their ability to capitalize on emerging market opportunities.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, before we sign off, is there anything else you want to add for our listener? Any final thoughts or insights that we haven't covered yet?
I think we've covered the essentials, but there's one final thought I'd like to leave our listener with. Remember that inventory write-down Teal had to take because of lower than expected sugarcane recoveries. Well, there's more to that story than meets the eye. It turns out those lower recoveries were partly due to their efforts to introduce new, higher-yielding sugarcane varieties. These new varieties have the potential to significantly boost their sugar production in the long run, but they also come with a learning curve.
So they took a short-term hit for a potential long-term gain. That's a classic investment trade-off, isn't it?
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of looking beyond the immediate numbers and understanding the strategic decisions driving those numbers. Teal is clearly betting on the future, and the sugarcane initiative is just one example of that. Now let's shift our focus to their power transmission business.
All right, let's dive back into the world of gears and gearboxes. We've already touched on the strong performance of Teal's power transmission business, PTB, but I'm eager to hear more about their strategy and growth prospects.
Their PTB is firing on all cylinders, driven by both domestic and international demand. One thing that stands out is their focus on building a comprehensive ecosystem around their products. They're not just manufacturing gears and gearboxes, they're providing end-to-end solutions, including design, engineering, installation, and aftermarket services.
That makes sense. It's not just about selling a product. It's about building long-term partnerships and becoming a trusted advisor to their clients.
Precisely. And this approach is particularly important as they expand into new markets like the defense sector. Their recent announcement about a dedicated multimodal facility for defense products is a clear indication of their ambition in this space.
That's right. They're leveraging their expertise in high-speed gears and gearboxes, which are crucial components in many defense applications. It's a smart move, aligning with India's growing emphasis on self-reliance in defense manufacturing.
And it's not just about domestic demand. They're also eyeing export opportunities for their defense products, which could open up a whole new avenue for growth. This diversification strategy seems to be a recurring theme for Teal. They are not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Definitely. From sugar to water to power transmission and now defense, they're spreading their bets and capitalizing on multiple growth opportunities. Speaking of diversification, let's not forget their proposed restructuring. It's a bold move that has generated a lot of discussion.
The decision to demerge their power transmission business is a strategic one aimed at unlocking value and sharpening their focus. By creating a separate listed entity for PTB, they are giving investors a clearer view of its potential and allowing it to attract dedicated investment and management attention.
But their decision to retain a stake in the demerged entity has raised some eyebrows. Some analysts believe a complete divestiture would have been a more decisive move and a stronger signal of confidence to the market. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a valid point. Teal argues that retaining a stake allows them to participate in PTB's future growth and provides financial flexibility for the parent company. However, it also raises questions about their long-term commitment to the demerger and whether they truly believe it will unlock maximum value. It will be interesting to see how this plays out and whether they eventually decide to fully divest their stake.
It's definitely a situation worth monitoring. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into Teal, I want to go back to their shareholding pattern. We noticed a significant increase in foreign portfolio investor holdings over the past year. What does that tell us about how the market perceives Teal?
It's a positive sign. It suggests that international investors are increasingly recognizing Teal's potential, particularly in growth sectors like power transmission and water. This increased interest from FPIs could translate into greater liquidity for their stock and potentially higher valuations.
So to sum it all up, Teal is a company in transition. They're facing challenges in their traditional businesses like sugar and ethanol, but they're also making strategic moves to capitalize on emerging opportunities in power transmission, water, and defense. They're not afraid to make bold decisions like the demerger of their PTB, and they're attracting interest from both domestic and international investors.
Exactly. They're a company to watch, and their journey over the next few years will be fascinating. For investors, the key is to understand their strategy, assess the risks and opportunities, and decide whether Teal's story aligns with their own investment goals.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into teal. We hope you found this exploration insightful and informative. Remember, investing is a journey of continuous learning and discovery. Stay curious, stay informed, and as always, happy investing.